Let's begin with politics. As an interest-driven game, mudslinging and personal attacks among political opponents are common. The camp of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, are engaged in verbal wars over presidential tickets for the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Mohammed fired the first shots when he said he's more qualified than Atiku, who hit back that the governor, who has no business in rubbing shoulders with him. Atiku and Mohammed were among the 17 presidential aspirants screened by committee of PDP in preparation for this month's primaries. Sam, it's getting interesting, and Atiku Abubakar say if you're on bail, the FCC case, you don't have any business contesting as the president.
Yes, absolutely. These are interesting times, and some of the rhetorics that we get to hear are not totally unexpected. Major frontrunners, are positioning to gain more visibility, and they believe that in doing so, they get public attention, and of course, win more followers to themselves. So it wasn't entirely, surprising to see the spokespersons and a big supporter of Atiku, going after each other. But I tell you, Ayo, politics is meant to be, a game of superior ideas, and I dare say that taking the issues, to the gutter level, as it were, is not what Nigerians are expecting at this time. We want politicians to trade in ideas. They should come to the table telling Nigerians what they have to offer, not the kind of mudslinging that we saw between Atiku's spokesperson, Senator. I mean, he is one of his major backers, Senator Zamiri, and the spokesperson of Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State, Mr. Udenta. So I think that we need to play less on rhetorics and deal more, on substance. That's what the electorates are looking out for.
Are you sure our electorates are looking out for?
Oh, absolutely. Between you and I, we know what we want.
A fraction of the electorates, the bigger part.
I want to be
infrastructure. They want rice. They want gari. They want things that's instant.
Nigerians are not asking for too much. I want to believe that the average Nigerian out there knows what he wants. We're basically looking out for good governance, shelter, good health, all right, and the likes that come with dividends of democracy. So I don't think Nigeria wants to live, in a way that reduces him below the level of humanity. So we know what we want, and Nigerians will continue to demand the best from their leaders. So we expect that those who are in contention for top positions in this country need to do what is right. They need to play. There's so much tension in the land, and we need to do what is right. Let's not heat up the polity, in our bid to grab power. We want to see substance, at play, not the kind of rhetorics and abuses that we see, by way of exchanges between our politicians. And we need to understand, even as followers, that politicians are interesting people. Sometimes what you see them do, on the outside is completely different from what they do behind closed doors. So one would like to advise Nigerians to be very careful, with particularly leaders who make so much noise, whip up a lot of sentiments, and behind the closed doors, go to shake hands with those who are supposed to be, who are supposedly enemies. So politicians are interesting people. Nigerians and indeed their followers must learn to, chew carefully and not be carried away by the outward appearance of quarrels, or what appear to be quarrels between these political leaders.
Talking about what Nigeria wants, it's when you talk about, a lot of people will say, oh, we want to see them debate. Yeah. Some people even say we want to see them articulate what they have for the country. We want to see them tell us what they have for the country and so on. And the larger populace will tell you that, look, it is what they can give right now. I shared the experience of Kingsley Moghalu, you know, in his 2019 experience as he was going from one community or the other. Even Omoyele he said something to that anywhere you go to, the level of poverty, they will ask you, bring something.
Well, I think the political class, the voters reflect the character of the political class because they can't be different. When people get into power, what is most important to them is what they can benefit from, you know, that government. And when they are going from one place to the other, they don't go with manifestos, most of them, to say this
that's the reality.
Yeah, that's the reality. So they don't go there and say, look, this is our program on environment, this is our program on security, this is our program on livelihood, this is our program on agriculture.
Or a big catalog.
Yes.
That will be sharing.
This is what we want to do and all that. So they go from one community to the other with their vehicles loaded with money, rice, you know, and the first thing they do is to meet the traditional rulers, give money, give rice in the presence of kingmakers and chiefs and children, you know, women, you know, and the oloris and all that. So it is the way the political class has defined, you know, the political space. Because in a country where laws are respected, you don't need to bribe. We know that when people are poor, when you give them money, the temptation is there. But you don't need to exploit their situation.
The level of poverty.
You don't need to exploit their situation to now diminish their personality. So I think it is what the ruling class has brought to us that we are expecting. But if you ask the average Nigerian, even after collecting the rice, the bread and all that, they'll tell you, look, if I don't take this thing, you will not see them again. And that is the truth. So the leadership should set agenda in terms of ethics in politics. It's not the people that will just wake up one day and say, okay, we want to redefine the political system. So the people that we are voting for, they should allow the laws to be enforced. The laws against bribery, against vote stuffing, against rigging. But once they don't allow that, you know, if you go to the US and start giving people $100 and there are no laws to sanction people will take the money. So I think it's the way we have defined the system that the people are. It's not the fault of the masses at all.
As we are moving towards that May, it's going to happen by the end of this month. PDP, APC, and all political parties are going to have their convention. Now, the leaders definitely, the people we call frontliners, are those with heavy war chests. And it is that war chests that is the confidence that wherever the delegate system, wherever the delegates are, the war chest will be deployed. That you don't expect somebody that hardly, you know, could barely eke out that 100 million naira and is talking to delegates one-on-one that, look, vote for me, don't sell your conscience. It's going to be all about the war chest.
That is correct, Ayo. Sadly, money has come to define our politics over the years, you know, and looking towards the primaries, you know, that would produce the presidential candidates. I don't expect anything less, and a whiff of what is going to happen is already, you know, at play when political parties put a price of 100 million naira to just, you know, forms. What do you expect? And I listened to the party chairman try to defend that, you know, that it will help them, you know, generate revenue to run the party, keep those who are not very serious away from, you know, contesting for positions and all that. But the fact of the matter is that it's a reality we have to face. It wouldn't be the first time, you know, past, you know, primaries, you know, of this nature also were defined by resources. We all got to hear about, you know, what happened somewhere in Rivers State and all that, and how money was exchanging hands. So, and that is why, you know, those who are party delegates are looking forward to, you know, the primaries, because it is their season, you know, as it were. So, but you ask, should we convene like this? Absolutely no. We just must find a way to downplay, you know, the influence of money in our polity, because it's almost like a cash and carry thing. So you and I, who are, you know, not as you know, as privileged, you know, can't seem to have a say in this entire process, and it shouldn't be so. We have to find a way to downplay, you know, the influence of money in our body politic.
Okay, let me pick my first call. Paul is calling us from Lagos. Thank you for staying with us, Paul. Hello, Paul. Hello, Paul. Paul, are you there?
Looks like we lost him.
Okay, I don't think Paul is.
Hello?
Yes, Paul.
Hello? Can you hear
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, Paul. Go ahead. You're live.
Hello? I should go ahead.
Just
Okay,
go
you can
ahead,
hear
please.
me?
Yes.
Yes. This forthcoming election to 2023 will be a decisive moment for the whole Nigeria. Yeah, I said this forthcoming election 2023 will be a decisive moment for the whole country. Both PDP and APC, they should give all the candidates a level playing field, either direct primary or whichever primary they choose to do. They should not impose any candidate on either of the party. They should allow them come out with their manifesto, because we are tired of all this thing that is going on. The majority of the masses are really suffering. Both the PDP members and the APC members, everybody is suffering.
For the PDP
you can't
now,
go to market
when you look at it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
They suspended the zoning system, and just for the purpose of this election. So it's a kind of all-comers affairs.
Yeah.
How do you see it panning out?
Well, I think it's going to be a very tough race. And it's going to, it's a very desperate situation. We can understand the suspension of zoning by PDP, because the last president of the country, PDP president presented by the PDP, came from the south, Goodluck Jonathan. So if they now say, okay, let everybody go to the field, we can understand that. People from the north can contest and all that. What is difficult to understand is that of the APC. But I think, let me also admit that after listening to some aspirants in PDP, I think there is a kind of hope, especially when you listen to people like Peter Obi, talking about cost, reducing the cost of government, But in our country, your quality may not necessarily determine whether you are going to win an election or not. That's another thing.
With 13 presidential aspirants and counting, the All Progressive Congress, APC, is set for a titanic primary election. In the face of the battle that lies ahead, the APC said it is yet to take a decision on zoning of its presidential tickets for the 2023 elections. The APC National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Abdamu, stated that such decision will be decided by the entire party. I think Senator Abdullahi Abdamu, okay, I listened to him yesterday. And, it's a sensitive issue. It took time before the PDP, People's Democratic Party, decided to arrive at where they are now. Now,
they also
have a very short time to look at the back and forth. Their convention is on the 30th. But let's listen to Senator Adamu Abdullahi.
We will come out, by the grace of God, at the appropriate time, with a candidate that the convention of our great party will choose. I do not want to speculate, but my duty as chairman is to listen to our party men, party leaders, stakeholders, to see what is going to be best when the time comes. And I've always found it easier and more noble to get to a bridge before I jump to cross it. We are not yet there. Today, privileged to be the chairman of the party. The party is greater than me. The party has not made a decision, and I cannot preempt what the party decision will be.
Wow.
Yeah, so APC doesn't seem to have much time in its favor, while the main opposition party is almost done with its screening. APC is still selling forms. They've not done their screening, and then they are even after that we'll be talking about the primaries. it's clear that what is at stake.
And they have almost the same time.
Yes, they have almost the same time. So it's like a race against time for APC. But I can tell you it's a very intricate game, very interesting game, and that is because the struggle or the move to get a presidential candidate is one that is intense. It's not entirely true that the party hasn't given sufficient signal as to where power would go. You and I already know that there was this swap, that put all the elected officers who were in the south, who were from the south, to the north, and then the north was zoned to the south. So it's clear.
If you remember, that did not affect the PDP from taking.
Oh yes, I'm talking about APC now.
Yes.
So for APC, it's clear that the switch between the north and the south, in terms of those who are, holding levers of power in terms of party administration, are clear. So because the national chairman is from the north central or towards the northern part of the country, it's this clear signal that we get is that the president is like it's come from the south. Now, in terms of microzoning, that is what is not, very clear at the moment. We don't know whether it's going to go to the southwest or the south-south or the southeast and all that. But as
this is not microzoning. For them, the standard practice is north or south.
Yeah, for APC it's north or south. But you and I know that there is a very strong, the sentiment weighs heavily, against, a section of the country. So that has come into play, and that is why I think that there's a lot of time, going into, decision making in terms of who will emerge or what part of the South would produce the presidential candidate of the ruling party, the All Progressive Congress. So it's a very tight situation for them. All right, you and I, just like the party chairman said, don't have a very clear picture as to what will happen, but we know it's going to happen. But one interesting thing that we must admit here is that, recall that not too long ago, the neck of the party said it had ceded power for 90 days to the National Working Committee. So when the APC national chairman tells us that he's waiting for party chairman and other stakeholders and all that, we know that a lot of power resides in his office at the moment. Yes. And we also know that he's the president's candidate. All right? I mean, we cannot away from that fact. Okay. So it's clear to some of us who are, very keen watchers. Enormous powers. Those of us who are watching understand that he's likely to be watching the president's body language. And you also want to recall that Mr. President not too long ago did give clear indication that he has somebody he's interested in. And if Abdullah Adamu is his man, it's clear to me that at some point, Mr. President is likely to be whispering to him who that person will be. So a lot of power resides in the office of the national chairman of APC. So I don't think it's entirely correct to want to assume that this thing is going to be left to party men and other stakeholders and all that. There's a lot of politics and intrigues playing out, and we must take that into consideration.
Why did you see these people going the route of the People's Democratic Party? Because for the People's Democratic Party, the way they went, that's actually brought about peace and tranquility, calmed different nerves. Yeah. Nobody is feeling shortchanged. Do you understand? Except openly. They were able
not
to,
openly.
And so, do you see the APC taking the same escape route?
Well, like my friend said, we are reading the body language of these main stakeholders, and there are several assumptions that we can deduce, conclusions. First, because you have the national chairman from the north, it presupposes that the president may likely come from the south, but that is not given. It could also be a ploy, it could also be a plot to delude the people, to create a kind of illusion, whereas there is another game plan different from what is on the ground. That's number one. Then number two, if we look at what we are talking about zoning, it is not in the Constitution, but there are certain norms that are stronger than what is in the Constitution. There are so many things people do that are historic, that are not, if you wake up every day, you eat. It's not in the Constitution you have to eat, but it's custom, it's belief, it's tradition. So when we are talking about rotation, it is driven by trust, by confidence building, by the plural nature of our society. the need to sustain peace and stability, and also given the fragile nature of the country at this moment and the experiences we have passed through these past 7 years. That's why people are saying that, look, let power shift to other parts of the country. If the APC now wants to take a hardline position to say that, look, we even want to bring somebody from Daura, well, it's not against the constitution, but does that not run contrary to common sense? That having spent 7 years in power, then you are taking power back to the north again. I think that is the feeling, that is the groundswell of opinion of many people, especially from this part of the country. So for at this level, for them to be saying that we are even yet to accept zoning, it sends a very dangerous signal, to the country, because it means that on that day, we are not actually sure of what is going to happen. Anybody can emerge. And if you can also, look at the number of candidates emerging from, it shows that there's a clique somewhere that appears to be determined to set the people against each other in order to pave way for a particular interest to feast on the division and disagreements among the southern candidates. Because looking at the number of people that have so many, indicated that this is from the southwest, unity will be very difficult. And I'm sure that most of these people will not come out, without consultation with the powers that be. They will have met the president, they will have met the national chairman, and they will have expected that there will have been, to say, look, there's no need for you to contest. This is where we are going. But we don't have that signal as we are speaking now, so which makes the whole thing very difficult for us to predict. When you look at, okay, let's say the southeast and the southwest, for example now. For example, the southwest, ASUU Bola Tinubu is out. It's coming out. The Vice President, Yemi Shobaju, is out. Redefining will be launching anytime this Wednesday. Ibuku Namosu will be launching anytime Thursday. Dimeji Bankole is also talking about coming out. Adam Soshomole is talking about coming out. And when you see the number of people, even from the southwest region alone, so the way the thing is being schemed, anytime I was looking at the calculation yesterday and I couldn't get the answer to this question. That what's happening?
At the last count, there were 13 candidates who had indicated interest to run for that post in the All Progressive Congress. So it's not just these principal officers that you have talked about. No, I'm talking about the geopolitical zone, the southwest. The southwest. The southwest in particular. Yeah, but it just speaks to the interplay of forces, at that regional level. Some people would think that it's better that everybody come together and support one person. I can tell you for free that some of those who have indicated interest are probably not in it for the long haul. Some could just, some could just be spoilers. It wouldn't be the first time it's happening. It has happened severally and all that. So, first we must understand. Spoiler with 100 million. Lots of money is involved in this game. Wow. A lot of money is involved in this game. Let me just digress a bit. There are rumors that the guy who went to court on the part of PDP, the Cosmos Ndukwe guy, was being sponsored by somebody. I mean, who's Cosmos Ndukwe in the calculation of things? So those are the issues. There are some who are in this game, to play the role of spoilers, and they're not going to be doing it for free. Money definitely is going to exchange hands. And we also acknowledge that there are major contenders out there, the likes of ASUU, who is big, the VP, who is massive. It's not like the other guys really don't matter, but you and I know that in terms of political weight, they don't seem to measure. So it's clear that some are in the game, to act as pawns, on the political chessboard. I have from Cambridge Island in the United Kingdom. Is it Balaji? Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I'm coming from Ghana. Right. The major problem with our political space is that our political elite has hijacked or kidnapped masses. And the major... Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, the major problem we have in Nigeria, we are talking about manifestos. Manifestos is not going to help the issue. I'll tell you why. Majority of the people that vote are the artisans, market women. If you look during the election, artisans, market women who doesn't read manifestos, who doesn't listen to news, who hasn't got money to buy newspapers or listen to the TV like us. Corporate guys, they don't go and vote. These are the problems. So majority of people that determine our political elite are the artisans, and the political people understand that what they need to do is to give them bag of rice and salt and all that. So the problem, the major issue is our corporate elite must come out and vote, and the students must come out and vote. Otherwise, the artisans and the illiterates will continue to take bag of rice and determine who is going to be our leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris from Cranberry Island in the United Kingdom. I think he was talking about our docility because the one, the part I got hint of was that the people that left to vote, Muhammadu Buhari emerged to be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria with 15 million votes. And Atiku Abubakar, the runner of 11 million votes. And when you look at everybody that participated in that exercise compared to our numerical strengths, in Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu emerged with less than 1 million votes. And the runner of Jimmy Agbaje, 200 and something thousand votes. And this is a Lagos with over 7 million registered voters. Right. Something is wrong somewhere.
Absolutely. The issue of voter apathy is real, you know, and that is because people don't think or people don't believe that their votes will count at the end of the day. But that has to change, and that will change if the electoral umpire continues to show capacity, you know, in the area of organizing free, fair, and credible election. I think we're making, you know, steady gains, and that is why, you know, we seem to have a lot more people, you know, indicating interest, you know, to register for the upcoming elections. It's going to be a gradual process. So we have to deal with the issue of, you know, voter apathy, and one way to deal with that will be to build confidence in the process, and that is where, you know, INEC comes in. We want to believe that it will live up to, you know, its tag, independent National Electoral, you know, Commission, and that's what really matters. I believe over time, you know, with sensitization and the right mobilization strategies, that a lot more Nigerians will queue up to vote and choose their leaders in a fair, free, you know, credible environment.
Well, quickly, on that party.
Yeah, well, one thing is what you are voting for. One thing is for wanting to vote, another thing is to know what are you voting for. I think illiteracy has become a deliberate policy to disempower the people and to sustain the system. The people we are talking about are a majority, but they are not conscious enough to determine the kind of quality of candidates that they want to vote for. And I think for the kind of system we have today, many politicians want that kind of system to continue. So once people don't have access to education, they will continue to make the wrong choice.
To run or not to run is the biggest challenge on the hands of former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan regarding the 2023 presidential election. But some of his loyalists are offering him a way out. His key advisors and some former ministers in his cabinet have advised him to ignore the calls to join the 2023 presidential race. We gather that they told Jonathan to forget about ditching the People's Democratic Party for the APC, as feedback from the party leadership shows that they are not forthcoming on automatic tickets for him. This just came out from the blues, as in it's something that's been gathering momentum, and we felt that it's one of those gists that we pass with time. But I didn't take it, you know, serious till a group of protesters went to Jonathan Goodluck, former president. And I expected that the man should say, thank you for your love, thank you for your attention and your love and your, well, you know, your agitation. But what we are having here is that unequivocally, that, look, I'm not interested, I'm a statesman, I've retired, I'm just going to be the father of the country. But what he said here was, watch out. And with that watch out, that he just told me something. He did not deny it.
Yeah, Ayo, you shouldn't have been entirely surprised, because in our climb, politics is somewhat of a career. It's a lot of, it's somewhat a career, and how do I mean? People within that space.
What did you forget in the villa in 2015?
It's beyond that. So for them, politics is work. It's a means of livelihood. That is what is at play here. So if politics for you is a career, you don't see any other thing. It's for you, it's not about being a statesman. It's about
diplomat.
Yeah, it's
on behalf of the country. He's all over Africa. His name is out there. He's winning awards. He's giving lectures all over the world.
That is what it should be. But what do you find on ground in terms of reality? Still the same greed that is driving people. Those who have come out to club, you and I know that it takes nothing to mobilize people. The same people you hire in the morning to sing your praise are going to work for your opponents in the evening. So it really takes nothing. Mm-hmm. So those who are pushing him are doing so because they want to find a job for themselves. All right? It's not about the interest that they have for this country. Otherwise, for a man who has acquitted himself well in terms of the way he handled power without, allowing for the kind of concerns that a lot of us were bothered could happen. We all thought that he would just sit quietly and then and lap, the limelight, as it were. But that is not happening. But I wasn't totally shocked, and that is because in our environment, politics is just a way to put food on the table, and that is what is happening. A lot of the people who are in it are not doing so because they love you and I. That is what is happening. But again, you don't want to deny him what is supposed to be his right, as it were. I know that legal luminaries are all over the place, positing what is right and what is not. But until we're able to define what is right or what is wrong, the man has a right under the Constitution to say, I want to contest. But the morality of it is the concern of most Nigerians. Is it right that having served, for 5 years, 2 years, holding brief for the late President Yar'Adua, he ought to have, taken time, to ruminate over what is happening in the country and probably act as another statesman. But that is not what is happening, and that's because some people are throwing certain pegs at him. Oh, if you do this, you can run for under 4 years because the Constitution allows it. While the likes of Femi Falana are saying, no, you shouldn't do that because under the law, you cannot take another shot at the presidency. But those who are behind and pushing him are doing so because they believe that at the end of the day, if he walks out, food is going to drop on their table. But again, I ask, is this how we are going to make progress as a society, as a country, as a people? Absolutely no. We should be driven by the higher ideal, to build a society that is progressive, one where everyone believes that the country cares and that it can make meaningful contributions towards the growth of the nation.
What is Jonathan looking for?
Well,
not in PDP now.
Yeah, in
All Progressive Congress, the party that vilified him, the party that led to his exit in government, the party that called him corrupt, the party that told Nigerians that this person is not fit to be the president. The party Lai Mohammed lampooned and brought him down. At the end of the day, he was voted out in 2015.
The return of Jeff, indicates so many things. First of all, that politicians who say what they do, they will deny. And they will deny what they will later say. About 2 years ago, this issue came up it was denied by everybody. It's not possible. But now these signals are becoming brighter. Then it also shows that politics in Nigeria is no longer about conscience. It's no longer about integrity. And when you have a people that have no conscience, there is nothing that matters to them. The interest of the people means nothing to them. And it also raises questions about the fact that I think President Buhari would like somebody, the person that will succeed President Buhari, he will prefer somebody that will be better than him, if you ask him. Does it now mean that there are some people that think that President Goodluck Jonathan, that we removed 7 years ago, is better than President Buhari? Better than President Apparently. So in a way, it's a vote of no confidence on the APC itself. That the APC has left, it has
some governors are championing within the APC are the ones with some strong people.
It shows that all the campaign, were just mere propaganda. That in fact the man was quite better than the candidate.
To demonize Goodluck Jonathan as a 7
years. You are now asking him to come back. Not even in his own party. You now want to accept him as your bride in your own party.
And he's giving you condition.
It's sick. So it shows that in Nigeria, anything is possible. And I think it's also a clear indication that the political parties in Nigeria, both PDP and APC, they are only different in appearances. Fundamentally, they are the same. Because if you look at Labour Party in the UK, Conservative Party, traditionally for over 100 years, you know what each party stands for. The Republican Party and the Democrats in US, you know, we are talking about abortion, talking about labor, environment. The party has a consistent policy spanning centuries. What makes APC to be fundamentally different from PDP? If you are now asking him to come back, you are telling Nigerians that, look, the difference is just in people. It's not about ideology. It's not about philosophy. I would think that political parties should be driven by philosophy, by ideas, by programs that will be totally different from each other. So if the idea is just to, bring the bottle, to remove the wine and put another one, I think it's contemptuous of Nigerians. In fact, it's strictly, against the principle of democracy. And I'm shocked that, Jeff himself is not showing any resistance. That is ready to,
That's
the former President Goodluck Jonathan. And we understand what is motivating this idea has nothing to do with the basic needs of Nigerians, but the need for access to power of a clique. They believe that if Jonathan goes there, he spends 4 years, the power can now return back to them. There is justification for nothing. So
we'll come back there. Yeah, Ayodeji is calling us from Plateau Jos. Thank you, Ayodeji. Good afternoon, Ayodeji.
Hello?
Yes, you are live. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, Ayodeji. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon. Very nice program you are having. But amongst all this talk of the political space, one thing that has always puzzled me, we've had 3 years, all of us know, this regime has been a colossal failure, whichever way you want to measure it. But you still find out that the same actors, the young people really have been a source of embarrassment because they should have positioned themselves properly, gone to the grassroots. The politics of this country started with our political forefathers going into the grassroots to get the people. They were young when they formed parties. The majority of people in this country are young. This are the backdrop of the high level of illiteracy. I always told somebody right from school, I was told that 90% of Nigerians are either subliterate or illiterate, which still stays today, despite everything. So I'm not the very optimistic person to think that there will be anything new from this whole political system, where we have underage voters, where we have a preponderance of number of people that they don't know why they are voting. It's just following the flow.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?
No, the PDP or the APC, nobody is talking about, the interest of Nigerians here. And even the APC is not speaking up. The PDP is not even speaking up. This thing is shrouded in like speculation.
Are you referring to the Goodluck Jonathan?
Yes, stuff? The coming of Jonathan. PDP is not saying, oh, he's still in our party. APC is not saying he's our member. But all we keep hearing is that Jonathan is coming. Watch out.
Yes, because there are games, going on that. That is the truth. Our colleague Ade, said something to the effect that the former president is being propped by those who don't want power to stay here in the South longer than 4 years. Again, that is arguable, all right? But you can tell that the conspiracy to keep quiet is because the parties are looking at grabbing power, and they really don't care about who takes that power on their behalf. It's about access to the center, because when you get to the center, it puts you in a pole position to begin to have access to the till and allocate it the way you want. So that is what is disturbing. So it's not about the generality of Nigerians, all right? It's about what do we do to get into power, and thereafter begin to define who gets what. That's why the issue of zoning, for instance, has remained, completely unresolved. And that's because they don't really care. If it's going to take one individual from the northeast or northwest or whatever, with guarantees to win the elections for the APC or for the PDP, I can tell you that issue of permutations over where the person comes from will play second fiddle. So it's just that element of greed, self-interest, that is driving the entire, conversation that we have around, Jonathan emerging to run for the presidency and all that. So,
finally on this, what we have here now is that, look, at the end of this, at the end of the day, ultimately, we gathered that he is seeking a situation whereby there will be no contest. Just hand me over the party ticket.
Yeah.
And don't you think that could potentially include that party?
A party that is about 9 years old, 8 years old, you made no input in the formation, you just come from nowhere, and then you just emerge as a candidate. How would the other people feel? And even if you emerge, it's not mechanistic that is going to win the election. It might just be a way to give power back to the PDP. So, and if he emerges, what will happen? What will be the consequences, for the APC itself?
Days ahead will surely answer that question. When the 1st of May, it's 1st of May, and the APC will be having their convention on the 30th of May. So in the next 29 days, I'm sure they will, when the nomination, if Jonathan is going to pick his nomination ticket as a member of the All Progressive Congress, if he's going to pick that nomination, or if he has been registered in his Ogbea local government,
as a card-carry member.
As a card-carry member of the All Progressive Congress after serving as president under the People's Democratic Party. Days ahead, we'll just be clearer. We'll know what is really happening with that party. Eid-ul-Fitr, the Islamic festival to celebrate end of Ramadan fast, is upon us, and a hitch-free celebration is desirable for us as a country. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, who felicitated with troops on the occasion, has directed them to eliminate many bandits, kidnappers and terrorists as possible and recover as much weapons and ammunition from criminal elements. In a statement to the army formations and units across the country, General Yahya urged field commanders to redouble their efforts in ongoing operations, saying the best Salah gifts he expected from them is to eliminate as many bandits, kidnappers and terrorists as possible. General Yahya, the Chief of Army Staff, giving the marching orders to his boys that will be his best Salah gifts. Go after these bandits, go after the kidnappers, go after these terrorists and neutralize them.
sometimes I wonder if we're not going around in circles. I mean, less than 7 days ago or thereabouts, Mr. President gave a similar, marching order, direct, asking the military chiefs to free everyone who is in the kidnappers den in this country. And here we have the army chief issuing the same command. Sometimes you wonder if this is not just for you and I to consume, or for just for optics. So yeah, it's a good thing, but we want to see action. We've had enough of talks about what needs to be done. Mr. President has said that repeatedly, almost sounding like a broken record, and here we have the military chiefs repeating the same thing. Nigerians just want to feel and sense security all over them. We want to go to bed with our eyes closed. We don't want to continue to hear about, incidents of people being kidnapped, children, in kidnappers' den, kids being born while in the kidnappers' den and all that. So we want to see action. We agree that, all around us, there's a lot of insecurity. The military appears to be stretched and all that. But we want to begin to see action. Can we see a sense, a different kind of strategy, that will begin to take out the terrorists, the kidnappers, the bandits, wherever they are. But we seem to, just be paying lip service to entire thing, and you wonder if there's a coordinated arrangement, to get this matter resolved. I don't see much, happening in terms of, real efforts to deal with this matter. Because every day you get to hear about the same thing happening all over the place. If people are not being kidnapped in the Northwest, people are being killed in the Northeast, North Central, Southwest, and even the Southeast. Yes, it's a tough task, but that is why we have put our men right there to take care of us. We commend what's been done, but we think that there's a lot more that needs to be done to give Nigerians a sense of security. And that's what we want, because the entire thing is hurting us, it's hurting the economy. It's affecting investor confidence in the country. All right? A lot is happening. It's affecting food insecurity, creating food insecurity and all that. People can't go to farms. And so what we thought was, a little challenge has grown into a festering sore. And we can't continue to live that way. So we want to encourage our soldiers all over the country. We appreciate what they are doing, but we think that there's a whole lot more that needs to be done, to give Nigerians a sense of security.
Those terrorists that abducted people on the train that was going between Abuja and one of the women actually put to bed, and we saw a picture of a new baby and everything, and I was terrified that we're counting days, and Nigerians, and we've almost forgotten those people.
I've been thinking of that little baby. It's
born into crisis.
It's traumatic. Who are the nurses or the midwives that delivered her? How are they going to cope? How will the mother cope in the bush breastfeeding this little baby? What kind of world has the little baby, been introduced into?
Shows that these terrorists are not human beings.
Little baby
they should have just left this woman.
AK-47, and all sort of things. What of Medicare? What of antenatal care? How on earth can one imagine this happening in any country? And all these things, that took place not outside Nigeria, within Nigerian territory. And we could not discover where they are. We could not discover what is, where they are being kept. So, and the people that were kidnapped, not 10, not 20, hundreds of people that are kidnapped all over the country, kept in different places within Nigeria. And you have surveillance aircraft, you have drones that could pick where they are. They don't have bunkers. They are not even in tropical forest. They are in savanna areas. So the whole thing is sickening. I watch that thing and I look at the babies. It's traumatic. So, like my brother said, the Chief of Army Staff, what he has said is a good inspiration to boost the morale of soldiers. He also spoke about welfare package and all that for soldiers. It's a ritual statement. We have had it over. In fact, last December, the same thing was said. Last Fitri, the same thing was said. Last 2000, almost every year. It does not translate. They must say something. You know, but in terms of what is on the ground, Nigeria is. We are worried about what is going on. We are worried. You know, keeping a woman to even deliver and then showing the baby shows how wicked, you know, how cruel these human beings are. And I think that what has happened regarding this woman that gave birth is a call to the Nigerian government that they don't need to joke with this thing any longer. They need to step up the campaign against terrorism.
Okay, we have another caller. Ade is calling us from London.
Good afternoon. My brother there. You are doing a good job.
Thank you.
Regarding the APC Jonathan issue, please help me to advise the former president to maintain his integrity and his good name, and don't muddy his name. Very, very important, because Malam Boni is the one that fed this baby trap for APC. He wants to bring Jonathan. He didn't do it secretly, openly. I had a meeting with him last year. He wants to bring Jonathan in order to try the effort of the southern people in order to climb the presidency, particularly Jagaban. He doesn't want Jagaban to be there, so he's bringing Jonathan. Jonathan should not submit himself to be used to deny the South their own opportunity, because his name will go down negatively forever. So it should not be used. It should not allow Manaburi to use him. So, for example, look at Southeast. They have not produced any president in Nigeria, and they all voted for Jonathan throughout 8 years of Jonathan's reign, or 6 years he was there. They voted for him massively. But even for the sake of Southeast.
Ade, thank you. Thank you. And if you look at the response rate so far, you know, since this insurgency started, since banditry started, we've not recorded much in terms of rescuing people, rescuing captives, rescuing Nigerians that have been abducted. And when you hear the police saying that, oh, they've rescued so, when you ask the victims, they will say no, they paid ransom and they were released, and police met them. And no, not that. We've not had records of tidy operations. Look at all the secondary school girls, students that have been abducted in Kaduna and Dapchi and what have you. So I don't know, maybe we're not up to this task in terms of rescue operation.
Ayo, let me admit that is why we have a huge concern. That's why Nigerians are crying out. That's why we come here almost every day. And a dominant issue remains that of insecurity in our land. Okay, first, let me also, let me concede that in the war against Boko Haram in the northeastern parts, we seem to have made progress. But in terms of being able to apply or deploy intelligence to hold or pin down those who are behind this incident, we really don't have any records. I mean, we can't lay claims to having killed the leader of Boko Haram or the lieutenants who succeeded him. We cannot lay claims to having captured and prosecuted any known, bandit leader. And there are very familiar names, the Torjis of this world and the rest of them. And you wonder if these guys are invisible. Ayo, that's your concern. That's my concern. And that's the concern of Nigerians. Those we see paraded almost every day on national television look like, foot soldiers. Permit me, hungry lads who just, go on errands. The major backers, we don't have access to them. And that is why, oftentimes when,
bandit leaders,
none
of this world.
None. It's only when we're able to pin people like that down and bring them to justice that we can begin to celebrate. So at the moment, we're just fed with, clusters of arrests of minors here and there and all that stuff. And if the larger concern also remains the kind of feedback that we get from state headsmen. I mean, we've heard about in Zamfara, for instance, district heads or leaders, traditional, rulers being deposed and all that. We don't get to hear about prosecution, because if you depose somebody, you are assuming that he has committed crime for which he can be investigated, and prosecuted. We would like to see what becomes of these, depositions, trials, and the rest of them. We can't seem to hold on to anything, and that is why oftentimes you get to hear, people speak up about lack of political will on the part of government to want to deal with these issues. All right. Once we had, the governor of Zamfara State telling us that he knows those who are behind, banditry and terrorism in the states and all that, and even threatened to mention names. As we speak, not one name has been mentioned. Even the federal government talks about, knowing those behind them, threatening to take them to trial and all that stuff. But we don't get to see anything at the end of the day. And you wonder if this fight is really genuine. So the government has a lot to do in terms of convincing the people that it really means well in terms of, executing this fight against terrorism, against banditry, and other related crimes. We want to see people, brought to justice. We're not seeing, those we get to see every day are almost inconsequentials. Those who are not in a position to do anything, but who, more like errand boys and girls, as it were. And then you ask yourself, is this not about, intelligence? Adele spoke about, what happened in kidnappers then. Do we have a thriving industry as it appears, where you have doctors who can, visit the kidnappers right there in the so-called bushes, deliver, pregnant women, return to town? You understand? So you ask yourself, if mere mortals like you and I are able to foray into these territories, then what about government? What about our men in uniform? What are they doing? How much of intelligence is at play here? So you wonder if this is not about the lack of political will to go the extra mile and deal with this, with this challenge once and for all.
I have Ibrahim from Kaduna State calling us. Thank you for joining us, Ibrahim.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your two guests over there. My name is Ibrahim from Kaduna. You see, the issue on the bomb on the bomb burner this afternoon is quite interesting. Terrorism, that's it. Am I communicating? Yes. The issue of terrorism in this country and elimination, it has been overdue. It has been long overdue. You see, if really we want to do this thing squarely, I believe we will do it. In a situation whereby where we are buying this weapon from, and they are giving us a directive. They are giving us a directive that no, we should not use it on social. Why? This is a factor and really lacuna. This is the area that many of us will have to look into. If something like this comes about, how will you operate? Not that these people, these security agents, or those in the front side are not able to get to these people. They know where they are. But giving a direction, no, don't go there. Don't do this. That is a serious force on us. It is dragging us back. That is the area that we, Nigeria, and our leaders, to look into. Why you guys are giving all them? There is another lacuna. The second issue is this. These terrorists, they are not human beings. Even the new baby child they give birth in this holy month, it is a way for them to just release those people for the sake of that little innocent baby. That is my cry to that. Let them use this one as just a way out for themselves so that they will be able to cleanse up themselves. If not, this is a very serious. And Nigeria, look, we have a long way to go and we will succeed. To me, we will succeed. This only month that we are trying to exist from will be a blessing for this country. They don't continue to guide us, lead us, and give our leaders the wisdom to do what is right and go to the length to do what is right for us. Because Nigeria will never fall. All the enemies of this country, they will be the one to fail. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my voice. Bye. I've been Ibrahim from Kaduna.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for your contribution. Because let's look at what is at the root of this. Yes, we said some of these terrorists migrated from the J, some of them from Libya, some of them from Mali, but ultimately they kept festering because there's a kind of fertile ground that was that has been encouraged through insecurity, through unemployment of our youths. Some of our youth are now active members in the thriving industry of banditry. If they are saying we have over 30,000 bandits in Zamfara State alone, you can imagine the number of our youths, unemployed graduates, or people that didn't even see the four-wall schools, the imagery that has, constituted themselves to be bandits.
Well, I think it's convenient for us to say the bandits, the terrorists are not Nigerians. That was what we used to say some 6 years ago. But it makes it worse, even if that is the situation. There are people who come from Mali, from Ngige, and they now use your country,
have a free reign,
as the base to launch attack on your own people. But the truth of the matter is that there is homegrown environment where they can thrive. That is why they are operating here effectively. And the conditions just make it a fertile ground for them to mushroom. If we have been very careful, if we had seen, the signs several years back, and we are taking proactive measures, what's happening will not have happened at all. Because some 8 years ago, we started talking about 10 million children out of school, talking about orphans, talking about children that are begging on the streets. And when people are pushed to the extreme, it brings out acts of aggression. Even in the southwest here, southeast, where you don't have pronounced cases of terrorism, you see acts of aggression everywhere. So it's very easy to recruit people that have no jobs, that have no access to education, that are hopeless. They have no access to livelihood. And I think the economic conditions in our country make it very easy for them. But even then, that is not an excuse. It means it's a challenge that we need to overcome if we are determined to do so. Because if you see what is going on in other countries, Chad, Mali, they are also dealing with those terrorists, and they are recording successes. In our own case, we depend much on buying huge equipment. Now we are expecting the DA-47 surveillance. We are going to buy more tracker, helicopter, beechcraft. We have just bought F-16 and all that. But buying equipment, spending a lot of money on equipment does not translate into defeating terrorism if you don't deal with the root cause, which is poverty, which is lack of education, which is access to opportunities. And that is why, if you look at Nigeria, the Northeast has the highest number of children that are out of school. And that's why this terrorism thrives, followed by the Northwest. That's why these areas have become the hotbeds, for extremism. And I think, the statistics have been there for us, except that we fail. In other countries, once there is statistics, you call the Director General of the Office of Statistics. When you are holding FEC meeting, he is there. You tell him to tell the country the implication of having 10 million people and what are we going to do. So we have taken precautionary measures some 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. But now it's never too late. Like my friend said, we need to rely on intelligence. And intelligence is not just about Directorate of Military Intelligence. It's not just about DSS. It's about the people. You need to engage people to be able to provide you adequate information on the movement of terrorism, of terrorists, on where they hibernate, on their modus of operations. It's the people that can give you this information because they live among the people. They are not ghosts. So if there is no a constructive engagement with the people, you just assume that only the army can deal with the problem. We are not going to make any headway.
All right. American businessman and author Robert Kiyosaki once said, and I quote, "When people are lame, they love to blame." Having failed to resolve its industrial dispute with the members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, the federal government is now blaming the striking lecturers. The Minister of Labour and Productivity, Chris Ngige, who denied being responsible for the prolonged strike, which has kept public universities shut for nearly 3 months now, described the attitude of ASUU leadership to the reconciliation effort as uncooperative and anti-labor. We're here. The last time I checked, Chris Ngige wants to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the Minister of State for Education to has also picked his phone to become the president. So, and they claim to have the solution to the problem of this country. Some ministers under Mr. President want to succeed Mr. President. They claim they have the solution, but they refuse to tell Mr. President that solution all through 6, 7, 8 years. So Chris Ngige now want to become the president of Nigeria, and ASUU is on strike 3 months down the line.
That's what makes the entire thing, very laughable. I'm sure you noticed me, smiling away. And that is because I have difficulties, reconciling some of these convenient claims that have been made by principal officers of government who ought to have, through their offices, ensured that our kids, are in school and learning. Let me just help us bring this fact home. Last time I was here, I did say that for you to have a fairly good grasp of what has happened in the education sector is to understand that in the last 5 years, out of 5 years, we spent 1 whole year.
Out of 5 years.
Out of 5, 1 whole year. And that is as at, 2021. If you add the 1 year that our kids spent at home last year and the 3 months, you probably have a situation where in the last 5 years, our kids have been home almost 16, 17 months, nearly 2 years of, university shutdown. And you wonder if we're indeed a very serious people. And here we have government officials, laying claims and shifting blames as to who is responsible for
4 straight years again.
No.
6 straight years or 7 straight years. There must be.
And then
break in this transmission.
I'm just reminded of an image I saw 2 days back. I hope it's not recent. If it is recent, it's a picture of one of the kids of a governor in the north who just graduated from a university in the UK. I don't want to mention names because we are not here to deal with such issues. But again, it just tells you the hopelessness in the entire situation. If those who are supposed to be managing us don't have absolute confidence in our educational system and they're sending their kids abroad, it just tells you that for those of us who are commoners, then there is little or no hope left. And I dare say that it is wrong for the Labour Minister and the Minister of State, of Education to shift blames. And this is not about taking sides with ASUU. The ASUU people are not asking for too much. I mean, government willingly went into an agreement, signed an MOU, signed an MOA or whatever it is called, and has refused to implement the agreements it willingly, put signature to. And then here we are, government officials, shifting blames and telling the rest of us whose kids should be in school that we shouldn't bother. And it just makes the entire thing very disheartening. I was listening to the Minister of State last time, on the day he was picking up his phone, telling us that we should not be carried away by the general claims out there that students are at home. That indeed, if you take out the private universities, take out the state universities, that is just about 50 or so universities belonging to the federal government where you have a shutdown in academic activities, and you wonder if these universities, let us even without conceding, all right, these universities that have been shut down carry the highest number of student population in the country.
Yes.
And then he wants us to believe that that argument is sustainable. It's not. Nigerians are very disappointed that in the last 14, 15 months, or thereabout, if you add what transpired last year, that our kids have been home. And the rest of the world is moving on, and we're talking about a knowledge economy. And here we are, we really don't care. Ayo, you talked about the fertile ground for recruitment of bandits and the rest of them. You'll be shocked that some of the guys who are actively involved in these criminalities are undergraduates. I mean, we hear about the Yahoo thing. They're all over the place. In fact, you almost have departments of such departments in some universities. So we create these environments, and then we go back and then tell us why did it take them so? I mean, why are they pontificating over their capacity to be able to deal with this when they are in a government and they couldn't? In fact, it's disturbing that even Mr. President himself, listening to them, is still accommodating them within his cabinet. I see it as a mark of sabotage. I mean, if you know what to do and you refuse to do it, and you're waiting for when you become Mr. President to be able to do what is right, then it shows that you didn't mean well in the first place. I'm sorry, but it just says, it speaks a lot to the rot in our educational system.
Like I was listening to the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, in Lagos APC Secretariat, and he was providing solution to Nigerian security problem, talking about how he was able to conquer insecurity in Rivers State, that what happened in Rivers State during this time is what is happening in Nigeria. And then I think these people are part of the Federal Executive Council. Why are they not able?
The train, the transport system.
Yes, we don't know the number of people that were actually abducted. How many dead right now? And somebody is not taking responsibility.
It's a national crisis. There is a Chinese proverb that says that if you are planning for 1 year, sow rice. If you are planning for a decade, plant trees. If you are planning for lifelong venture, educate your people. Education is the key. All the developed countries you are seeing is education. Our government does not take education serious. It goes beyond the Ngige. That is the truth of the matter. What was our budget for education this year? I think it's about 7.9. In the past 6 years, averagely it's about 6%. Rwanda allocates 10.7% of its national budget to education. Ghana, 23% to education. South Africa, 16.7% to education. So if I happen to be the president of Nigeria, I would have invited ASUU. Because this thing is not just about Ngige alone. It's about the federal government of Nigeria and the future of the children of this country. There are 43 federal government universities, and we have 48 state-owned universities. But these 43 federal government universities, they have thousands of people are there. The numerical strength of the students in these institutions.
I'm sure that UNILAG is
these institutions are some of them over 50 years old.
Population of some 5 private universities put together.
Yes.
Or even much more.
Nothing less than 50. As at time we were in UNILAG, it was 47,000.
Yes. Look at UNN, look at ABU. So why look at the Southwest that we're looking at today? I will introduce free education for it started in 1952. Just about 7 years. The impact is still being felt 60 years after. So if you look at all the development in technology, invention, military hardware, everything is about development and research. Hope State University alone, $2.6 billion every year on research and development. So it has to do with the kind of character of leadership. We don't have value education, and we are paying for the consequences of ignorance. That's why you see a lot of terrorism, violence, aggression. Our economy has refused to develop. So we need there should be a paradigm shift from how we address education. The national budget and everything. If not, we are going to be in a very bigger problem. I think this problem goes beyond the Ngige. It has to do with the kind of people we have in power.
All right. Joining us via Zoom for more insights into the discussion is the chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, at the University of Lagos, UNILAG, Dele Ashiru. That's Dr. Dele Ashiru. Thank you for joining us. We started earlier last week, and we promised that we're going to trash it out this Sunday. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ashiru.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I want us to just break it down to Nigerians. A lot of people feel that anytime you decide to go on strike, it's all about your salary, your remuneration. That's what it's about. Now, this 3-month-old extended strike, what are you agitating for? What is the bone of contention?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. While we thank our colleagues in the studio for, their insights thus far, I'd like to say that the crux of the matter really is the insensitivity of a government whose priority is not in the education of its citizens. In 2009, we signed an agreement with government. That agreement had 4 pillars. The first is conditions of service. The second is funding for revitalization. The third is university autonomy and academic freedom. And the fourth pillar is other matters related thereto. Between 2009 and today, in spite of all the strikes, it is shameful that government has not been able to fully implement that agreement. And to add insult upon injury, you listen to, individuals entrusted with the destiny of Nigerians, the way they talk arrogantly with complete disregard for the future of citizens of this country. I mean, you listen to the Minister of State for Education, somebody whose bit is to ensure stability and progress in the education sector. The way he takes the matters of state beats one's imagination. And if you also listen to the Minister of Labor, you begin to realize that ego is beginning to set in. That minister had presided over 3 memorandum of action between government and our union. And all of these memoranda of action had failed. In societies that are serious, that are making progress, such a minister would have thrown in the towel. But rather than do that, you listen to the kind, of assertion they make with complete disregard, for the pivotal role of education in our society. Our union is not going to be disturbed because we understand that we must do what we are doing if Nigeria must take its pride of place amongst the Committee of Nations. And I am saying this because if you go into any Nigerian university today, students' accommodation are not only in disrepair, they are grossly inadequate. The laboratories don't have common reagents. The libraries are 10 years behind. Infrastructure are decaying. Even the teachers who teach them, cannot go to the market and smile back home. It may shock you to know, Ayo, that university teachers in Nigeria have been receiving the same salaries since 2009 till date. The implication of that is that our members all over the country, lecturers in public universities, are the ones who are subsidizing public education in Nigeria. And now we are saying government must review that agreement, because even in the 2009 agreement, it is there that the agreement should be reviewed every 3 years. It is now 13 years and government is refused, to review that agreement. We had a document concluded by Professor Muzali Jubril-led government team in 2021, since May. Between May 2021 and May 2022, government is yet to look at the document, let alone, implement what is contained therein. I listened to the Honorable Minister of Labor the other time saying a government cannot pay, and all those crap arguments. Contained in our agreement, in the document that they have refused to utilize, are suggestions about how government can raise the finances to fund education appropriately in Nigeria. So you have a ruling class that is bereft of ideas. It's also lazy. They cannot read. They cannot also think. And when you also think for them, it becomes difficult for them, to digest the suggestions that you have and implement. So what we are saying, and we remain resolute about it, is that the 2009 agreement must not only be reviewed, they must commence implementation, as well as taking us out of the now very discredited IPPIS platform and deploy UTAS as dictated by government itself.
Tell us about the. Last week we stopped you. We didn't have time to talk about this UTAS and IPPIS, and you were describing the government-owned profile platform as fraudulent, and we want you to shed light into this.
Yeah, you agree with me that as a union of intellectuals, we have the capacity to look at issues and give blueprints to government. When our union was told that IPPIS, we were to be enrolled on the IPPIS, we told government that this is a system that is not suitable, for the Nigerian university system. Not only that, there's nowhere in the world where lecturers are paid through a centralized payment platform like those in the core civil service. Not only that, we predicted that IPPIS, is a fraud and would also compromise the sovereignty of the country. Today, our union is vindicated because, one, the latest Auditor General of the Federation's report had very unkind words in describing the IPPIS scheme. That's aside from the humongous amount of money that government had committed into it. Not only that, the head of the civil service of the Federation, Mrs. Folashade, only recently came out to tell Nigerians that they have found thousands of ghost workers on the IPPIS platform. The very reason why it was introduced in the first instance. I mean, these two instances from agencies of government is enough for a serious government to abrogate the IPPIS platform. But let me tell you the harm that platform is doing to our members. I've listened to arguments, particularly the last one by one Professor Kemi Rotimi, who said that an employee cannot dictate how an employer should pay him. That argument, belittles, our status as scholars. Because apart from the fact that workers are not slaves and workers have rights, it is incumbent on any worker to also complain that, look, this payment platform is injurious to me. As I speak with you, when we are being paid under the IPPIS platform, no lecturer can say that at the end of the month, this is the exact amount that I will receive. IPPIS will drop whatever they care to drop. Some lecturers expecting about 334,000, they will be paid 34,000 naira in a month. And when you want to complain, you have nowhere to go other than to Abuja. And of course, the Nigerian system. When you go to Abuja, you don't get anything done without greasing the hands of those in the IPPIS office. It was the chronicle of all of these shortcomings in IPPIS that led government itself to challenge our union. It was government who told us that if you don't want IPPIS, give us an alternative, believing that our union may not be able to do so. But our union went inwards, gathered the best brains amongst us in computer technology and ICT knowledge, and we brought out UTAS. UTAS as a payment platform is more flexible, it's more dynamic, it's more transparent, it's accountable, it's robust. It speaks to the peculiarities of the Nigerian university system and takes care of all of the payment structures in the Nigerian university system, be it CONWAS, be it CONWA, be it COMPUCAS, any of the payment structure that we have in the university system, the UTAS platform had been designed to cater for that. Now, in a bid not to implement UTAS, government funnily said that they were going to subject it to a NIPDA test. Of course, our union raised the question, did you subject IPPIS to any test? The answer, of course, is no. And then we said, well, if you want to subject UTAS to a test, go ahead and do so. UTAS was subjected to that test by the report which I had forwarded, to my brother Ayodele Ozumbaku. NIPDA itself, the technical team of NIPDA, scored UTAS 99.3%. I wonder by what stroke of imagination and by whatever mathematical computation that a system that scored 99.3% will be adjudged to be a failure. Of course, we know the reasons why, youths have become political. First, the pantomization.
In terms of your agitation, you spoke about 4 legs and you started with one and you didn't articulate the rest. When you started,
the first is the condition of service. The second is funding for revitalization. The third is university autonomy and academic freedom. The fourth is other matters that are related to the 3 above. Conditions of service, I mentioned that university teachers have been receiving the same salaries since 2009 till date. How much is a bag of rice in 2009? How much is it today? The second is funding for revitalization of universities. And what we are simply saying there is that government should fund education in Nigeria such that it will become globally competitive. It was on that beat that I talked about no reagents in the laboratory, no latest journals in our libraries, poor living condition for students, etc. I give you a practical example. Some of the best hostels in the University of Lagos are renovated, were renovated by monies that were brought into the system by the strikes of our union. In terms of university autonomy and academic freedom, IPPIS have done more to erode university autonomy that we have fought for over a long period of time than any other system in the history of this country. And that's why our union is not prepared to allow government to take over the autonomy of universities by ensuring that each time you want to appoint a university lecturer, you have to take permission from the head of the civil service of the federation. And our union is arguing that there is nowhere in the world where universities are categorized as ministries, departments, or agencies of government. Universities are autonomous institutions in the business of knowledge production for the development of society. And if we desire development for our society, the way to go is to guarantee, autonomy for university and grant academic freedom to those who teach in the universities.
All right, Dr. ASUU, permit me to take you back to the matter of funding of universities. How would you respond to claims that managers of Nigeria's university system have, failed in the area of being creative in terms of revenue generation that can support, the management of Nigerian universities? Here I'm talking about, suggestions that our universities can charge appropriate fees and also engage in commercial ventures, that can generate revenue for some level of independence that can support the management of Nigerian universities. How would you respond to some of these claims?
Well, thank you very much. I will respond by saying that first, universities are not business ventures that will think about generating money. There's nowhere in the world where universities are, are structured in that manner. What universities are meant to do is develop human capacity and develop minds to make citizens, to produce better citizens for the society. Now, because of government's unwillingness and, insensitivity to education, especially tertiary education in Nigeria, universities have now had to go out of their way to be producing pure water. Some were even suggesting that they should produce vegetable for them to eat and all that. These are reductionist arguments for what universities represent. What universities ought to do, and which we have suggested to government, is to support robust, well-meaning research in our universities. Those researches would in turn be patented and they would generate revenue for the university. The only way a university properly functioning should earn revenue is by investing adequately in research and development, and also tying their researches to solving problems within the society. In Nigeria, our union had given a challenge to government, that rather than, getting expertise from outside the country, rather than, giving contracts, consultancy contracts to your friends and cronies, look for universities with requisite expertise and let them brainstorm, think through a particular problem and proffer solution. And then from such, proceeds, universities can run comfortably. But in all of this, government must take the lead. In South Africa, they have a research fund that is more than the budgets of 10 states in Nigeria put together. Some universities outside Nigeria have budgets that are bigger than that of Nigeria. We are saying that government must be the one to take the lead in, funding researches in the university. I'm talking about students paying appropriate fees. There is no fee that can be appropriate, for the kind of learning that goes on in a university properly functioning. And this is vindicated by what is happening in the private universities. Some private universities charge 3, 4, 5 million to run courses, and yet they still groan under improper funding. They also don't pay lecturers well. In fact, we have on good authority that they also contribute to the reasons why government is refusing, to renegotiate the 2009 agreement book. Because what it will mean for private universities is also increase payroll emolument for those who teach there. So while that is noted, universities can be funded through endowment, through researches, through patents, etc. But it is the owners of the university that will lead by example. A government cannot be irresponsible and then expect responsibility from other people. In societies where universities are driven by endowments and all that, the government of such places, the state in such places, also play a very pivotal role in driving, such researches in university.
Dr. Ashiru.
Can I go ahead?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ashiru, in what way has this strike affected brain drain locally and internationally in terms of ASUU members being frustrated probably to go and look for jobs elsewhere?
Well, thank you very much for that. That goes without saying. Our members are leaving the shores of the country in droves, just like medical doctors are leaving. A university is a universal profession. Scholars in Nigeria are wanted all over the world. And as long as government keeps playing politics with the lives of lecturers, lives of students, etc., our colleagues are leaving the shores of this country. A number of our younger colleagues recruiting who were best graduating students in their respective classes and recruited to beef up, the academic staff in most universities have all left. In UNILAG, more than 85% of such individuals have found ways into Canada, into the US, into England, all over the country, where their PhD are even to be sponsored. So what we are saying is Nigerians may not realize, the gravity of this government's crudity and lackluster attitude in Nigeria's education system today. But the consequences are drawing home.
If you are going to be objective now, do you think the federal government can fully fund tertiary education in Nigeria? There's nowhere in the world that you have tertiary education being funded by the state 100% the way we do it in this country? Is there any other solution you can prefer to the federal government of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. It is not true that even government is wholly funding education. What government is only paying is salaries of university teachers. The universities are struggling, to do a number of things on their own. And most often, when governments even give budgets, they don't release it. So nobody's, as we speak, government is not funding tertiary education in Nigeria 100%. Students in federal universities are paying. You may say that what they are paying may be small compared to what they pay in private university. In state universities, some students pay as much as 150,000 naira, in their respective universities. So it's a different thing if we say they are not paying what you call adequate, but it is not true that government is 100% funding education in Nigeria. Having said that, our union had given proposals to government as to how education can be funded in Nigeria. Bear in mind also that is a constitutional matter. The Constitution of Nigeria says that education shall be free to university level. We believe that that is achievable if government, cut wastages in government. Look, the budget of the National Assembly is more than the total budget for education for 5 years in Nigeria. And we are saying that a government who finds it comfortable to give $1 million to Afghanistan to jump on the plane to go abroad for ordinary toothache, receiving humongous salaries by government officials, cannot say that there's no money in Nigeria to fund tertiary education.
Wow.
Look at the politicians.
We have to
100 million naira, 100 million naira to buy a nomination form in a country where the minimum wage is 30,000 naira. That tells you that what we need to do is to reprioritize and not, give the lame excuse that they cannot fund education in Nigeria.
Dr. Ashiru from the University of Lagos, the chairman of University of Lagos, ASUU. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining Journalist Hangout on Sunday. If there's anything you can give to Dr. Ashiru, is the energy.
The
clear vision, energy, and the passion, which
absolutely.
I wish you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Drop by
Thank you.
Science Department and come and see you anytime I come on campus. Well, I don't know.
It's
one thing I promise our viewers is that I think sometime this week or next week we're going to have the education minister. That's Dr. Chris Ngige.
Yeah,
I hope we're going to have him, and I hope we'll take him on this.
I hope he finds time. They
are
a bit distracted now.
No, trust them.
All right.
Trust them. We're going to have you live, and we are going to ask him about this.
Yeah, his responses.
Issues raised by Africa.
Yeah, very germane.
The continued hike in prices of goods and services in Nigeria without corresponding rise in income means citizens are in a sort of quagmire. According to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, the increase in the prices of items has reached alarming heights, averaging 126.7% between 2020 and 2022. The Director General of MAN, Segun Ajayi Kadir, blamed it on current economic downturn occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic, worsening insecurity, forex volatility, and the war in Ukraine. This has forced local manufacturers to pass the increase in the prices of inputs to the final consumers, who are now overstretched. Final consumers who are now overstretched. Think of what you used to buy for any amount before.
Yeah.
What is happening now? And everything has skyrocketed, and Nigerians are saying that their income has not in any way increased, So the hyperinflation that we have in town, I think as at the last check, according to the Office of Statistics, inflation,
15.9. That's about 16%.
15.9%.
Yeah.
All-time high.
Absolutely, Ayo.
Double digits.
Very trying times for Nigerians. The prices have risen up to the point where it's become almost nearly unbearable. We can't begin to mention or even compare notes now. But the fact that has been put out there is that we're talking about a 126% increase in the last 2 years. Yes, of course, in 2020, we had supply chain disruption because of COVID and the rest of them. Yeah. But beyond that, we have very serious distortions in our economy. It's almost like a vicious cycle, Ayo. The prices are going up on the back of energy, crises, insecurity, food inflation, and the rest of them. And the industries are bearing the brunt. And as I did say, it's almost like a vicious cycle. Your cost of inputs is increasing. The prices of the final products are going to increase. Consumers don't have enough, in their pockets to buy. What you have, arising from that are, large inventories or unsold stock, if you like. And of course, when companies have large unsold stock, capacity utilization, comes down. And when companies are not producing at optimum, they start thinking of sacking their staff. So a whole vicious cycle. You sack people, they get back into the economy, the employment, queue lengthens, and then we come back to the issue of, an environment where you can begin to recruit bandits and all that. It's really a very sad development. As I did say, distortions, and it simply, speaks to the fact that over the years, we don't seem to have managed our economy in a way that, it becomes largely productive than, the consumption that we're talking about at the moment. Sadly, it's almost like a mono economy where we're living off oil and all that. And once the prices crash or goes up, it affects us. In our own case at the moment, even when the price goes up, we are complaining because we are import dependent. We have to, bring almost the entire volume of petrol that we need, diesel that we need in this country, we import. So even when others are reaping from global, rising global oil prices, here we are crying and saying, no, it shouldn't have been so. So that's the dilemma we find ourselves, and it just shows you that the managers of the economy need to do a lot more in terms of cushioning the effects, and ensuring that poverty doesn't, take all of us to the cleaners.
Mr. Adoye, I can afford to do away with my Hughes and Curtis shirts to just cut down, do away with it, but I can't afford not to eat. And the prices of goods and services.
Yeah, one can afford to cut his coat according to his size. But what if you don't have coat to even cut? Because it's only when you have a job, you can now be talking of, planning your budget and all that. But millions of people out there are no jobs for them. They walk on the streets. You go out now, you see people well-dressed, begging. You see children, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years,
on the
their
streets.
parents on the street, begging.
They're knocking at your side mirror.
Yeah. And you see acts of aggression everywhere. You are passing through the road, people will hit your car, little thing people want to fight.
They're not smiling.
Because they are being pushed to the extreme. And the unfortunate is that Nigeria is noted for subsistence agriculture and commercial agriculture. Those things are being threatened by terrorism, by violence. People are leaving the farms, because they cannot go to farm. And this thing will also affect the quality of manufactured products, because they want to manage. So it's going to reduce acceptance of products of Nigeria internationally. The excuses that were given, Ukraine war, COVID-19, well, fine, but they are not enough. It also boils down to leadership. What is our plan for renaissance, for economic renaissance? Each time we dole out cash, 30,000 to people, 10,000 to millions of people, and all that, we are not involved in creative ventures that are give people jobs. Mere doling out cash is not enough to transfer the economy. And you are doling out billions of cash, something you could have invested into production, textile industry, SMS, SMEs and all that. So it's a cash economy, and we are not thinking about the future. And I think the implications are grievous for the stability and growth of the country on the long run.
Now, when you want to look at the average man on the streets and government, we have the highest economy in Africa. We've been able to do this, do that, reduce the GDP, do this, that. And a lot of people will say, hey, look, that it should translate to that food on the table. They want food on their table, and the price of pepper, salt, tomato is not getting better.
Yeah, Ayo, and that's the major concern. So, despite all the claims, the tag that we have had to live with is that we are the world's poverty capital. So, whatever anyone tells you, what is clear is that the rest of the world thinks that this country is the poverty capital of the world. And that's why people just are concerned about how to survive on daily basis. How do we...
Almost 100 million people
living
above poverty.
Yeah, living below poverty line. And government tells us that it has plans to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. And our colleague Adeoye says, look, you can't do that by just giving out 5,000 naira, sometimes 2,000 naira or 10,000 naira, and you say, yeah, it's not sustainable, and that's clear. But of course, government wants to continue to, recruit persons by whatever means who can continue to, give them the votes at the end of the day. And I think that is really very sad. We should be concerned about the long-term, survival of this country. Nigerians want food to be put on their table. You call it stomach infrastructure, but then a hungry man is an angry man. Whatever it will take to rebuild this economy, we must do it. But beyond that, Ayo, a very strong recommendation that has been made is that we must look at, and very seriously too, the cost of governance. The way our leaders go about in a naked manner, displaying wealth, just tells you that it's either we have continued, to tow the sad part, of stealing from, from the nation's purse, or that our leaders just don't care. The kind of signals that come from the political class and our leaders just simply tells you, look, for those of us who are on this other divide, we just have to find a way to survive. And that's not going to help anyone. We have to look at the cost of governance. It's simply unbearable. From the executive to the legislature, something has to be done. And that's why there's this huge clamor that again we should take another look at our system of governance. It's not just working, it's too expensive. If we continue this way, I'm not even saying if we continue this way, we're already there. The economy is in dire straits, and we're just carrying on as if nothing is wrong.
The last count, how much?
It broke. I can tell you. I can tell you that a lot of government parastatals couldn't pay before the holidays. It wasn't the case, and people are getting all manner of excuses of no, it's this, or the fact of the matter is that the country is not buoyant anymore. We are broke. A country spending more than 90% of its income servicing debts, every day, and we're just carrying on as if it's not an issue. And we are told, debt to GDP is not an issue, it's revenue that's... But again, we are not earning. And I just mentioned here that we are probably one of the very few countries in the world where our source of income, the prices are going up, and we are saying, no, it shouldn't be, because it's rubbing up negatively on... Do you understand? It's a crisis that you can't dimension,
And then quickly, cost of production too.
Yes, and
small-scale businesses.
It's going to get worse. It's not a cost, but reality. If we find it difficult to fix energy, that is, light, to provide light, because it's getting worse now because we are even producing probably less than 4,000 megawatts in the country. No electricity anywhere. So I think that is going to make the situation bad. And the election is coming. What should be important to Nigerians is the program. How the next president, how do you want to transform the economy? That is what should be most important to us. It's not about people being able to raise 100 million naira to go and buy forms. What is your program? What are the things you want to do differently?
Sam Bimere, I think it's a wrap for our Muslim brothers and sisters in the future, in the next 2-3 hours.
Absolutely.
After 30 days of dedication and devotion, the future is tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll look forward to happy holidays. Is it also a time for sober reflection? We need to, seek the face of God at all times for direction. This country does need, God's intervention.
Malady, your message?
We wish our Muslim viewers a happy ceremony. It's a very happy event. And like we always say, that Islam is a religion of peace. So we wish them well and more a peaceful and prosperous country for the benefit of all.
So on behalf of DH crew, happy Eid Field Trade to Muslim viewers. I want to thank you, Wale Adeoye. Wale Adeoye, thank you for your contribution. And Sam, thank you.
Always my pleasure. Thank you very much, Ayo.
Yeah. And that's been our offering on Journalist Hangouts Sunday. Sunday is a special edition of Journalist Hangouts. And join us tomorrow for our regular episode of the program by 5 p.m. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11:30 p.m. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Ozubakon. See you tomorrow and happy Eid Field Trade.